Imagine ancient Rome, not the glory of its legions but a crowd gathered in dread, their eyes fixed on a scene that chills the blood. This is not the Rome of triumphal arches or grand banquets, but a city where fear and fascination mingle in the public square. The sun beats down on ancient cobblestones as the condemned is dragged forward, his fate sealed by the murmurs of the crowd. Faces twist in a mixture of horror and morbid curiosity, each person silently wondering if they could ever find themselves in his place. This is no festival, it's the infamous Poena Cullei, the punishment of the sack, a sentence reserved for the most reviled of crimes. Reserved for the most unnatural crime, parricide, it was designed not just to kill, but to erase a person from memory, denying them burial, family, and even the basic dignity of being mourned. In Roman eyes, this was the ultimate erasure, a fate worse than death. The ritual was chilling. The condemned, cut off from earth, sky, and sea, was sewn into a leather sack with a bizarre menagerie. A dog, a snake, a monkey, and a rooster. Each animal chosen for its symbolism, each adding to the terror and chaos within. The psychological terror was as important as the physical. Imagine the darkness, the panic, the sounds and movements of terrified animals, all while knowing the world outside has turned its back on you. Rome understood the power of spectacle and fear. This was a society that enforced order through unforgettable horror, using public punishment as a warning to all who watched. The crowd was not just witness, but participant in the ritual of exclusion. The sack was total rejection, a declaration that the person inside was no longer human, but something to be cast out, forgotten, and erased from the collective memory of Rome. As we explore this gruesome practice, we peer into the Roman soul, their anxieties about family, order, and the divine. The horror of the sack reveals a society obsessed with boundaries, between human and animal, citizen and outcast, sacred and profane. What could drive a society to such extremes? What fears and beliefs shaped a punishment so elaborate, so symbolic, and so terrifying? The Poena Cullei is more than a historical curiosity. It's a journey into the heart of Roman justice, a system where law, religion, and spectacle were inseparable. Behind the marble and grandeur, Rome was a world of dark rituals and fearsome laws. Let's open that window and see what shadows still linger in the ruins of empire. What crime could warrant such horror? What act could be so vile that it shakes the very foundation of society and demands a punishment as severe as the crime itself? Parricide, the murder of one's own father, the ultimate betrayal of familial trust and societal order. In ancient Rome, this was not just a personal tragedy but a crime that reverberated through the entire community. In Rome, the father was the family's priest, judge, and ruler, his authority mirroring the gods and the state. He was the paterfamilias, the cornerstone of Roman family life. To kill him was to attack the foundation of society, an act of treason against family, state, and the divine. It was seen as an affront to the very fabric of Roman civilization. The bond between father and son was sacred. Its violation was unthinkable. This relationship was the bedrock upon which Roman values and traditions were built. Early Romans believed no one could commit such a crime. There wasn't even a law for it at first. The very idea was so abhorrent that it was beyond the realm of possibility. When it did happen, the state needed a punishment as unnatural as the act. The response had to be as severe and shocking as the crime itself. The law, when it was finally written, treated the offender as a contagion to be purged. The murderer was seen as a disease that needed to be eradicated. The blood of a kinsman polluted the earth. The murderer could not die on Roman soil or be buried. This was to prevent the land from being tainted by such a heinous act. The punishment had to annihilate, not just kill. It had to erase the existence of the offender in a manner that was as complete as the crime was devastating. Parricide was a spiritual pollution, a miasma, that threatened Rome's relationship with the gods. It was believed to bring divine wrath upon the community. The punishment was a ritual of purification, not just retribution. It was designed to cleanse the community of the spiritual taint brought by the crime. It was a warning: tear apart the family and you risk the wrath of the gods and the state. The consequences were dire and far-reaching. The sack was Rome's answer to the ultimate betrayal. It was a grim reminder that some acts were so egregious, they demanded the harshest of responses. The execution was a spectacle of terror, a chilling display meant to instill fear not just in the condemned but in every onlooker. The Poena Cullei was not just a punishment, it was a message, a warning to all who might consider breaking Rome's most sacred laws. Designed for maximum psychological impact, the ritual was as much about public humiliation as it was about pain. The crowd gathered, their faces a mix of horror and fascination, as the condemned was brought forth. The condemned was stripped of their toga, stripped of identity, then hooded with a wolf's hide, marked as a predator. This act symbolized their transformation from citizen to outcast, from human to beast in the eyes of Rome. Whipped with blood-red rods, they were publicly shamed and dehumanized. The pain was real, but the loss of dignity cut even deeper, as the crowd jeered and watched every moment. Then came the sack, thick ox leather, expertly crafted and watertight, ready for its grim contents. The sack itself was a symbol of inescapable fate, a prison from which there was no return. The condemned, still hooded and bleeding, was forced inside. Their world shrank to darkness, the air thick with fear and the scent of leather and blood. But they weren't alone. A dog, snarling and terrified, was pushed in beside them, a rooster flapping and screeching in panic. A viper coiled and hissing, its venomous presence a constant threat, and sometimes a monkey joined them, adding to the chaos and confusion within the sack. The sack was sewn shut, sealing them in darkness and chaos. No light, no hope, only the frantic sounds and movements of the trapped animals. The final parade began. The sack, heavy and writhing, was carted through the city streets for all to see, a living warning carried before the people of Rome. Then, with no ceremony, it was hurled into the river or sea, the water swallowing the condemned and their animal companions alike. Death came by drowning, suffocation, and the terror of the animals. The struggle inside the sack was frantic, desperate, and unseen by the world above. No burial, no peace, the soul condemned to wander. In Roman belief, to be denied burial was to be denied rest in the afterlife, a fate worse than death itself. The water carried them away, body and memory erased. The condemned vanished, their story ending in oblivion, their name stricken from the records of the living. The punishment was annihilation, physical, spiritual, and social. Rome's ultimate erasure, a punishment designed to obliterate not just the person, but their very existence from the world. The animals in the sack weren't random, they were symbols, each chosen for meaning. The dog loyalty betrayed, a companion forced to share a grave with a traitor. Some saw the dog as a reminder of undignified death, as stray dogs consumed unburied bodies. The viper treachery incarnate, echoing ancient myths of offspring killing their parent. The snake mirrored the parricide's unnatural act. The rooster herald of dawn, sacred to household gods, its presence marked the extinguishing of the family's light. The monkey, a later addition, mocked the criminal as a grotesque parody of humanity. Each animal turned the sack into a living allegory of chaos and betrayal. The condemned faced not just death, but a symbolic reckoning for their crime. The message was clear: you are less than human, and your world is now one of darkness and disorder. The roots of Roman symbolic punishment trace back to Mettius Fufetius, dictator of Alba Longa. He betrayed Rome in battle, hedging his loyalty. King Tullus Hostilius punished him by tying him between two chariots, tearing him apart, a physical echo of his divided loyalty. While not a parricide, Mettius's fate set a precedent punishment should mirror the crime. Livy called it the first and last of its kind, but later jurists saw it as foundational. The link to thee is symbolic. Ultimate betrayal demands ultimate spectacle. Both crimes, treason and parricide, undermined Rome's core values, faithfulness and duty. The method evolved, but the principle remained: justice as unforgettable theater. Mettius's gruesome end was a legendary precursor to the ritual horror of the sack. Rome's justice was always about more than death. It was about sending a message. The sack perfected that message. There wasn't just cruelty, it was calculated statecraft. Its horror was a deterrent, a warning burned into public memory. It was also a ritual of purification, meant to cleanse the community of spiritual pollution. By sealing the criminal from earth, sky, and water, then casting them into the river, Rome symbolically purged the evil. The punishment reinforced the state's authority, mirroring the father's power in the home. Violating the family was a challenge to Rome itself. The state responded with overwhelming force. The spectacle demonstrated the reach and resolve of Roman law. Finally, it was about erasure, condemning the criminal's memory to oblivion. No grave, no peace, no legacy. The goal: make it as if the offender had never existed. For Rome, the price of ultimate betrayal was total annihilation. The sack was the state's most chilling warning. They endured for centuries, codified in 81 BC under Sullas. For over 400 years it haunted Roman law, invoked by emperors like Augustus and Claudius. Cicero described its horror, noting its roots in Roman tradition. Even Hadrian's reforms couldn't erase it. The sack returned, too deeply ingrained to vanish. Christianity didn't end it. Constantine reaffirmed the punishment, even adding a monkey to the mix. The practice persisted into the Byzantine era. Justinian's legal texts still detailed the ritual. For nearly 1,000 years the sack was a legal threat. Its longevity shows the power of Roman ideas about family, order, and horror. The shadow of the sack stretched from the Tiber to Byzantium. Rome's terror was built to last. Even the most terrifying traditions fade. As Rome fragmented, the sack's ritual complexity made it rare, then obsolete. Yet its memory lingered. Medieval jurists revived it in theory, and even in practice in parts of Germany. The Enlightenment finally swept it away. Thinkers like Beccaria denounced cruel punishments, pushing for justice based on reason, not terror. The sack became a relic, a symbol of barbarism left behind. Its abolition marked a shift, from public spectacle to more humane justice. The end of the sack was part of a broader move away from ritualized cruelty. The silence that followed was as meaningful as the horror that preceded it. Rome's darkest ritual was finally consigned to history. It reveals Rome's deepest values and fears. For all their achievements, the Romans clung to primal ideas of purity, pollution, and cosmic order. The family, and the father's authority, was the bedrock of society. Threaten it, and you threatened Rome itself. The sack was the ultimate defense of this order, a ritualized warning to all. Roman justice was theater, powerful, symbolic, unforgettable. The animals, the spectacle, the erasure, all told a story of transgression and purification. Rome's legacy is dual, law and brutality, reason and ritual. The sack is a chilling echo from the past, a reminder of the price of order. It challenges us to see Rome in all its complexity, capable of both greatness and terror. Even the greatest empires are built on fear, belief, and the rituals that bind them.